Here's a short explanation of how we intended the weed management planners to be used. There's two charts, one for weed control prior to planting and a second for weed control after planting. Both charts assume that the weed control tactic will be done in a timely manner, meaning weeds are no more than 3 to 5 inches tall or wide. The first step is to identify the weed species of concern. Since we could not account for every species, we listed key species along the top, along with their characteristics such as, is it a broadleaf or a grass plant? Is it an annual or a perennial species? Does it emerge mostly in the fall, early spring, or late spring? Do the plants emerge from seed or perennial structures? If someone is not sure about these characteristics for their problem weeds, the SARE publication entitled Manage Weeds on Your Farm is an excellent resource. Then we listed various control tactics on the left, and these include crop rotation, fall seeded cover crops, mechanical weed control, planting date, herbicides for chemical control. Under each of these tactics, we provide even greater detail. For instance, cover crops include different species of cover crops and their ability to compete with winter annuals. And then how effective a dead cover crop can suppress weeds. And this will vary by when the cover crop is terminated. We've also included what type of primary tillage was used and how often the tillage was done. Herbicides are based on effective products for the individual species applied at the right rate and at the right timing. See your state weed control recommendations for specific herbicides. The effectiveness of each tactic for individual weeds is rated and color-coded. Dark green boxes are excellent control, light green is good, dark blue is fair control. Also, the red boxes are when tactics may favor the growth of certain weed species. Let's look at a winter annual broadleaf species that emerges in the fall as well as early spring. Our example is chickweed. Including a perennial forage is an effective way to manage it with rotation. Cereal cover crops are competitive with chickweed prior to termination, and assuming they are terminated later in the spring. But if the cover crop is terminated early, before significant biomass is produced, there's not enough residue to have an impact on chickweed growth. As far as tillage, most forms of tillage will control chickweed. Early fall applications of herbicides, say after silage corn is harvested, are not very effective because of the emergence pattern of chickweed. But later fall applications or spring applications can be effective for chickweed control. The after planting chart is very similar to the first chart. It does have more characteristics for weed species with a wider range of emergence timings, growth habit in terms of upright, binding, and prostrate growth, and size of the weed seeds, since larger seeds can emerge from deeper in the soil and have more reserves to push through higher levels of residue. Cover crop section considers the effectiveness of the dead cover crop residue to suppress weeds rather than a living cover crop to compete with weeds. Mechanical weed control includes both pre-plant tillage as well as inter-row cultivation. Other tactics include planting dates, fertility, and fall weed management. Let's look at common lamb's quarter, a summer annual weed that emerges late spring and is a small seeded species. A rotation that includes a fall seeded small grain or a perennial forage is an effective way of managing common lamb's quarter. Because of its small seed size, cereal cover crops that are terminated later when the biomass stems are resistant to breakdown is often quite effective for control. Lamb's quarter is quite susceptible to inter-row cultivation. Planting a late season crops such as double crop soybeans is an effective approach because common lamb's quarter seeds germinate mostly in the spring and early summer. For instance, in the Mid-Atlantic region, few plants will emerge after July 1. There are a number of effective herbicides that can be used as well. We hope that the Weed Management Planner is useful as you consider a more comprehensive approach to weed management. Remember, this was developed for the Mid-Atlantic region. It's important to consider the weed species that you are targeting and your environmental conditions.